Welcome back to the arcade for another arcade fix. Today we're revisiting Time Crisis 4. We had a bad gun. I'm pretty sure it's a broken wire in the gun, so I've already took the gun off of the game, and we're going to take it back and repair it. Okay, well, we're back in the arcade here at home, and we have the Time Crisis 4 gun sitting on the table here. I already know that one of the wires in the cable here, or in the hose, has a break in it, because you could take the gun and you could bend the hose here and get it to work, and bend it a certain way and it would stop working. So I know that the wire is broken here. And it's the wire that goes to the infrared sensor. I don't know if this gun has a camera in it. I know it's infrared, but I'm not sure if it's a camera or some other type of infrared detector, but I'm suspecting it might be a camera in there. But anyway, the infrared sensor has its own wiring harness. Has a 6-pin plug, and it has a cable that those 6 wires are insulated in. I think it's got something to do with to keep interference out of it, crosstalk from the other wires or whatever. The other wires for the solenoid and the trigger, or just regular wires that are also run alongside the other wires, but they're okay, so we don't have to worry about that. Okay, first thing we have to do is go ahead and take the gun apart. So we're going to go ahead and start by taking the top half of this slide off, and since we're only going to replace that one wiring harness, we're not going to have to completely disassemble the gun, but we're going to be pretty close. And the slide has 3 screws in it. And because I have I put this gun together with a updated parts accessory kit, it had different screws in it. So these screws here are Allen head, but this one screw back here is still one of the original ones, and it has a thorax type, well, I'm not even sure if it's a security screw, but these Allen head screws they're not security screws. So anyway, we'll take these 3 loose, and we remove that part of the slide. You have to do that because we have to now remove this side of the gun shell. And I believe these also have the retrofit in all of these, yeah. So these will take a regular Allen head type screw. And this screw right here is hidden under that slide, so you have to take the slide off to access that screw. Now we could have flipped it over, and we had got 2 more screws here that'll take this slide off, but we don't need to take that off, so we're going to leave that as it is. We just want to gain access to half of the gun, get the one half exposed, and we're going to leave everything else bolted up to the other half of the gun housing. Let's see if this will get in here. May not. No, it's not going to reach that one. So I'm going to have to get a Allen head wrench for that. Okay, and these are metric. They're 2.5 millimeters. And one more. We got one more to get. Forgot the one up here on the front. All right, now we can remove the top half of the housing here. And let's see if I can zoom in on this a little bit. Here's the gun sensor, and here's the plug where it plugs in, and here's the wiring harness that goes around through here. That's the one that we're going to have to replace. The other wires that come out of here, like I say, go to the solenoid here for the gun recoil, and to the switch for the trigger. So, but those wires are okay, so we're not going to have to mess with those. So what we'll do here is we'll pull this board out here, be real careful with it, and unplug it, and we'll set that aside. And this is the cable we're going to be replacing, and it does have 6 wires goes to it, and this is the plug is a SXH, which is a JST plug. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we'll go to the other end here. This is the end that bolts up to the control panel, and it just has 2 studs comes out of it, and it's got a nut, lock washer, and a flat washer. So you have to take the control panel off and put this on. And in order to get access to this, we're going to take this screw out and this screw out and remove this housing right here. So let's see if we can get the right bit to fit it here. That should be it. And remove both of these. And this comes right off. Okay, now I just replaced the wires going to the solenoid. It's been almost a year ago, and at that time I started to replace the wires for the sensor, but they were good, so at the time I decided not to mess with it. So what I'm going to do here, let's see, I'm gonna go ahead and cut this tie strap off here, and there's two of them, and this is heat shrink right here that I put this on. And I don't remember when I put those 3 wires if I went ahead and repinned the new wires, or if I just cut the wires and put them together with heat shrink. If you don't have the pins to fit the plugs, that's the easiest thing to do, is to just go ahead and clip the wire, and then just go ahead and install the new wire and put heat shrink on it. But this particular time, I don't remember how I did it, so I'm going to go ahead and pull this off and find out. Alright, well, let's go ahead and dig into this and see what we got. First, I'll remove this one. And remove this tie strap. And then I think I'm going to go ahead and just cut this heat shrink off, because I can put new heat shrink on it anyway. So I get it as far as I can get it up here. I could just take a razor blade and do it, but I think I can get it faster like this. I just don't want to cut any of these wires loose. Okay. So I did. I just cut the wires loose and put heat shrink on them to repin them instead of repinning them. So I'm going to leave those like they are. But what I am going to do is, this is the cable we're going to have to change right here. And it's got 6 wires going to it. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pull all those out and probably just repin those, because I have new cable I'm going to use right here, and this is the cable that I'm going to use to replace this cable right here. I found it works real good, and is the other gun that I put this cable in, it's been in service now at the same location on the same game, the Player One game gun, for a good 2.5 years, almost 3 years now. So this wire's held up real good. I got this wire, believe it or not, off of eBay. I just did a search for 6-conductor wire, shielded, and as you can see on this end right here, it has foil shields as well as braided shielding around the wires. So it's pretty good shielded stuff. So it works great in this application anyway. The colors are different, but you can't always get original colors with original wires. So what I did last time, and I kept the sheet, is I made me a cheat sheet here. This is the sensor end, and I got the colors for the original wires, and then I wrote in the replacement colors for the new wire. So I have a little code to go by, even on both ends. The other end is a 12-pin plug. but this end up here is a six pin plug. And so yeah, shouldn't take us long to rewire this up. The hardest part is going to be getting it to go into the old housing here, but hopefully I believe this new wire is just slightly smaller than the old, so that should help in trying to get these wires back in through here and pulled out the other side. So all right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and first check to see if these wires are all the same color. And if they are, then I'm going to go ahead and just cut it off here and get this heat shrink off of here so I can be able to pull it back through and pull the new wire in. So we'll get set up for that. Okay, well, I've checked all my wiring, my little diagrams that I did when I did the last one, and all the colors and all the pin positions match up. So I have that to go by. I decided it's going to be easier to try to pull the new cable through the control panel in and pull it out through the base handle of the gun. So what I'm going to do here is 6 wires goes to this cable, but there's the 7th one here, I guess that's a ground. It's a white wire with a black stripe, and it's hooked to the ground shield. So we're just going to go ahead and clip the ground shield right here, and then I'm going to clip these 6 wires going to this plug, and I'm going to leave some wires on it. And that way when I repin these, I'll be able to just take the wire with the color 1 pin at a time and put the new ones in 1 pin at a time. So now I can take and pull this through the hole here so I can get a straight shot. So now I'm going to take the new wire, and I've already stripped down the end, and I'm going to solder all these together in a bundle, and I'm going to strip these down, I'm going to solder these in a bundle, and then I'm going to join them together with solder. And hopefully that's going to hold while I pull it through the gun hose. So I'll go ahead and solder this on here and get it ready to go. Okay, well, I got the new cable soldered onto the old cable here. Only thing we have left to do is right in here we got a couple tie straps which are strain reliefs, so we have to cut those. And get those out of here. And hopefully we're going to be able to pull this through. Depends on how tight that cable is. So we're going to try to stretch it out here as far as we can. And see if we can't pull it through. definitely tight. But it's starting to come through. Yeah. But it's wanting to pull the other wires out with it. So let me see if I can pull those back. Okay, it's starting to pull now. Hopefully it'll get a little easier as we go, because this wire here I believe is just a tad smaller than the original. So as we get more going through there, yeah, it's starting to freeze up. And we've made it through. Okay, so I want to pull enough through to feed it around where it goes and have some left over. So that looks good right there. Now on the other end, I might have to pull these wires back out a little bit. Okay. I think I got them back just right. All right. Now, cut a little extra here. And now we got our new wire run through it. And should have enough wire left for another one. Okay, well, the next thing we need to do is start sorting out, stripping back the wires at the proper length and putting some pins on the wires so we can put them into terminals. All right, well, I've been putting the little pins on the end of the wires here, and I was having some problems. These connectors that go on the wire are very small, and my crimpers here, the Waldom wire strippers that I got, the way they were made, they're of course a cheap set. I really need to get me a better set, but they wouldn't squeeze them together far enough to really crimp the wire in good. It would crimp the wire, but it wouldn't get it tight enough, and it would pull right out. So I looked at this, and I seen where it just not closing far enough. So I took a grinder and I ground out every spot in here so that the pliers will close tighter now. So now it seems to be working real good. So we're going to give this another try. Also, these connectors here, the part that crimps around the insulator, they're right long, and they're obviously made for a wire that has a thicker insulation on it. So I'm going to try just taking my wire clippers and I clip down the little tabs that bend around the wire insulation, and I think that's going to help. So we're going to try one here. Let's see, go ahead, and we're going to load this up. Like I say, they're very small, so it's real kind of hard to get them in here correctly. Okay, that looks good. And let's see. I hadn't stripped the wire yet. Okay, let's strip one of these wires. Okay, that's good. Now we're loaded in here again. All right, that looks good. Now insert the wire and crimp it as tight as I can get it. Looks like a good crimp. Give it a good tug, and it's good and tight. So it looks like that did the trick. Now let's see if the part that goes around the insulation is going to work a little better. Yeah, even that worked a little bit better. All right, got one more here to go. Get another terminal here off the strip. Take our wire cutters and clip these tabs down just a little bit. And let's load it up. And that's going good and tight. Crimp the insulator. All right. All right, and we'll be good to go as long as we can get them in the connector here. Alright, so we're going to get our new connector, which is the 6-pin JTS connector. And I believe these are the SXH series. And we'll get our little cheat sheet we made here. And they're written on here. If you have to look real closely, each pin is labeled 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So pin 1 is right here on this side, and that corresponds to my little diagram here where pin 1. And I put these little squares on here just to denote where these little spaces are in the connector here. So just for orientation purposes. And this is where the little tabs on the connectors lock in place. So pin number 1 is originally, and we can confirm that because here's the original connector here. And pin number 1 has a green with a white stripe, and pin number 1 will have green with a white stripe, and I replaced it with the blue. So pin number 1 is going to be blue. So we get the blue wire here. And push it in until it clicks. Okay, that one's in. All right, pin number 2 is green on the original connector, just solid green. And we replaced it with the solid green wire on the new harness here. So let's get that one. And make sure the little lock pin is out where it's supposed to be. So now we'll put the green wire in, and it locks in place. Alright, pin number 3 on the original harness is a red wire with a white stripe. And there it is right there, red wire with the white stripe. And we're going to replace that with the brown wire. So, take the brown wire here. That goes in pin number 3. All right. Pin number 4 is a solid red wire. And on the original harness here, 1, 2, 3, pin 4 is a solid red wire. And we're going to replace it with the solid red wire. So here's the red wire. Alright, now that's in. Okay, pin number 5 is a black with a white stripe on the original harness. And we'll just confirm that. black with a white stripe. And we replaced it with the white wire. So here's the white wire. And it goes in pin number 5. And it's in and locked in place. Alright, that leaves pin number 6, which is a solid black wire on the original. And sure enough, the original is a solid black wire. And we're going to replace it with the solid black wire in the new harness. So, make sure the lock tab is out. And slide it in. And locks in place. Okay, there we have it. Now we have the connector that goes to the sensor and the gun is all finished. So we can go ahead and just put this back together, or we could just go ahead and work on the other end. Let's see. Alright, I put a piece of heat shrink on here just like the original, so we can pull this heat shrink back up here. And I have to get my heat gun to shrink that down. Okay, well I got my heat gun here, so we're gonna, that's about in the right place. We'll just shrink this down. And there we go. Okay, well I've looked over the sensor, infrared sensor here, and the connector is right on the end of the board here, and I looked at all these solder joints on the pins real good, and they all look good, no breaks in them. Of course, this connector is a real nice connector because it actually doesn't allow movement of the pins on the board. So it's a right nice connector, a JST setup. I guess that's why they went to use them. So anyway, we need to plug this in, and the JST connector only plugs in one way. It has these little raised edges here which fit in these two little grooves on the connector here. Plus, well, no, the board's not numbered with the pins. I thought they might be numbered, but they're not. Anyway, it only goes on one way, so we'll plug it in. And now we'll put it in position in the gun, and we'll feed the wire underneath the coil here. And of course we have to get everything back in place. And get the length on this wire here. Okay, it just pushed back up into the cable easy, so that's good. Alright, so that should work. And the trigger switch should fit in place right there. So yeah, that'll work. So all we have to do now is get our tie straps and put our strain relief back on here. And I have an assortment right here. And it doesn't take anything massive. But there was one strain relief that hooks into the screw on this metal bracket here, and I didn't fish the old tie strap out of it, so yeah, because it's still in there. So let me go ahead and I'm going to fish that out real quick. And let's see which way I got to go. I'm going to have to cut the head of it off. I'm going to have to pull this back out to get to it because it's kind of in the way. So I'll pull this wire over here. I had to cut the head of it off. I need something to get in here to pull it out. Alright, there's actually a tie strap that's going through the head of another tie strap that's screwed into a hold down. So I'm going to have to get a tie strap that size. And here's one right here. And now the trick is going to be to fish it back up through there. Actually, it goes around all those wires. Okay, now we got it fished through. We can put our cable back down. Now we're going to have to put it back in place to make sure we got the right length. All right, all in place. Now we can tighten down this tie strap. And put one more tie strap right around the bottom, the base of the threaded piece where the hose is mounted. Keep it from being pulled back through. Alright, let me see if I can get a view of that for you so you can see what I was doing here. As you can see, here are the tie straps I put on for the strain relief, and that just keeps the wire from being pulled back down into the hose if it was to break loose. Now this rubber hose right here actually has a flexible metal hose underneath it. It's just covered in the plastic here, so it's flexible, but it's metal. And this one did break one time. That's why I have this repair on it right here. It actually broke, and I had to refix it back up into this piece here. So anyway, they will break loose eventually from just average wear and tear. The way people jerk on these guns is amazing that they hold together as well as they do. But anyway, now that we got this back together, we can go ahead and put our trigger back in, and we can start assembling this end of the gun before we go down to the connectors on the other end. So let me get some of this stuff out of the way here. And we can start putting this back together. I can find all my parts. And here's my trigger. Alright, first I'll go ahead and put this trigger switch back in. Now the trigger switch just has holes in it here. There's no screws that holds this down. It just fits on two posts that go in these holes. So, and then when the other half of the gun goes down on it, it sandwiches it in so it can't move. Alright, now the trigger here, it's just a slide trigger, slides back and forth, and it has one spring behind it. And of course, this piece right here, when it slides back, is what hits the roller on the switch that causes the switch to engage. And that's all it is to the trigger. Okay. Everything is in and in place. So now we can go ahead and put this gun half back on. Now sometimes it's a little tricky because this piece right here has to fit in this metal slot right here, and it gets kind of tight sometimes. So we'll see how it goes. It may go on easy and it may not. And that's the only part that hasn't gone in yet. It's close, but not quite. Alright, see if we can take it back apart and get this back end in first. Alright, I think we got it. Start by screwing this end down and see what happens. Okay, That end is down in place. We're looking good. Now if we get the rest of these screws in. Should be one more. Okay, well, let's finish putting these screws back in. You want to get these screws snug, and you don't want to over tighten them because you can bust a housing and crack the plastic, but they still have to be tight enough to where they're not going to come apart on you. And a lot of times they come with a little bit of Loctite on the threads, but I try to avoid Loctite because it causes problems taking it apart sometimes, and I'm the one who has to take it back apart if something happens. So I'd much rather just keep an eye on it, and every now and then when you're checking out the game, all you got to do is just look at the screws and just check them. If they're loose, tighten them. Once in a while you might even find where one's loosened up enough and fell out the gun. So I always keep extra screw sets with me, and I can always put a new screw back in it. But you definitely want to be able to take this apart and fix it when it breaks. It's nothing worse than a screw that's stuck and you can't get it out. It's a pain. All right, slide's still working. All right, now we can put the slide back on because we can finish the top of the gun here. And this side's got the 3 screws in it. But the only thing that happens to the slide here is that linear bearing goes bad, and when that bearing goes bad, it has a tendency to jam up, and it won't slide properly. And they're always kind of loose, but you see that rocking motion right there? That's playing the slide, and this slide was replaced about a year ago. So they only last depending on how much gameplay it gets. I've found a year and a half, sometimes 2 years, and you're going to have to replace that slide. What happens is that the slide wears, and the weight of the slide pulls down on it, and it rubs on the back of the gun housing here, causes it to jam. So it'll go back, but it doesn't come back fast enough. So while it'll work in pistol for single shots and shotgun for single shots, when it goes into the fast machine gun action, sometimes it'll go back, and it drags enough to where it doesn't come back before it pulls it back. So it looks like it's actually sticking. it goes back and stays back. Either that or it doesn't want to move. So that's just two of the problems, and they're all caused by that slide wearing out. And the slide has bearings in it, just little round ball bearings. I need this for that. And it just, with that machine gun action, there's no telling how many 100,000 times that thing goes back and forth in its lifespan. So it doesn't take long to wear that out. Okay, now the top end of the gun is finished. Now we have to go to the other end of the cable, and we're going to have to put the pins on the wire on that end, and then we'll be done. Okay, well here we are on the other end, the control panel end. So now we're going to have to prepare our wire so that we can put the plugs on it so we can put it back into this plug right here. So first thing I've got to do is get this outer insulation off. And since this has a wire braid around it, all I got to do is just take a razor blade or my X-Acto knife and just easily cut in to it. And we don't want to damage this end, because on the other end we didn't use the ground braid for anything. On this one, it actually, we need it because it actually hooks to a wire in the plug that acts as a well, I guess it's really just a ground, but it shields the wire, I guess, against radio interference or any kind of crosstalk interference. Now, if you just bend the wire and run the razor blade across it, it'll cut it and it'll just pop right apart. I believe I got it all the way now. So we'll just pull it right off. Now I want to save this ground braid, so I'm going to have to unravel it, because I'm going to twist it together, and that's what we're going to solder that one extra, the 7th wire on the end of this plug. So all you need is just either the tip of your razor knife here, or a straight pin works good, whatever you have. And I'm just going to try to unravel the braid on one side. And I'm using the dull end of side of the blade because I don't want to cut the wires. I'm just want to pull them apart down one side here. Some of them are probably going to break, but there's plenty of them, no biggie if they do. And I only need enough to, I could probably cut a lot of these off anyway, because I'm going to shorten it anyway. I will cut a few of these because I'm not going to need all of these. There's a rat's nest of tangled wires. Okay, that should be good. Now untangle, pull them over to one side and just twist them together. And that's going to be our 7th wire to the shield. Alright, now we can unroll this plastic aluminum type wrap, which is another shield, which we're just going to cut away because we don't need it. And that exposes our 6 wires and a string, which is in there for strain relief. So we're going to cut the string down at the base also. Alright, so we'll separate these 6 wires here, sort of straighten them out. And they all look pretty even on the end. So now we can go ahead and strip a little bit of insulation off the end and start putting the connectors on. Now these are different connectors on this end because this end of course gets the let's see, what is it, 12? Yeah, it's a 12 pin plug, and so it uses a different connector than the other end. This end here is it's still a JST connector, but it's the XA series, I think they call it, or the SXA. So the pins are a little different because they go in the housing a little bit different. Where the other pins had the little tangs that stick out on the pin itself, and you push them in and it locks in place. This one here has little plastic pieces that you have to, if you want to release a pin, you have to take like a little straight pin or a little screwdriver and pull up on this little plastic piece, and then that releases the pin. So it's a slightly different setup, but basically it's the same thing as far as putting them on. So let's see how this goes. See if I can get a little closer in for you here. Maybe that's a little too close. And if I can keep it in the camera, I will. Alright, see if we can't load it up here. Wow, it almost acts like it. The pliers here are too big for it. I'm going to try one without a wire in it and see what happens. Yeah, that's no good there. All right, I'm going to have to look at this and see what I can do. If worst comes to worst, what we can do is just go ahead and strip these wires down and solder them and put heat shrink on them like I did before. But I'm pretty sure I crimped these on before on that other one. So let me take a look at these pliers and see what I can figure out. Okay, well, I came to the conclusion that my wire stripper just wasn't up to the task, so I'm not going to be able to put those connectors on these wires. So it's a good thing I clipped the wires at the plug like I did, because we're just going to strip back the wires and solder them together and put heat shrink on them. So I've already done all but two, so I just figured I'd show you exactly what I'm going to do here. We're working on the original green wire with the white stripe, and we substituted that with blue. So we got both wires here, and I've stripped them. So now I'm going to tin the end of the wires with solder. And I've already put a piece of heat shrink on here. So we're just going to hold the two wires together. And just solder them together. A little dab of solder. And then we can slide the heat shrink over the joint. And apply some heat. And that one's done. Alright, so we just got one more to do, and I'll walk you through that. And the new wire is a brown wire, so we'll strip that back. And the old wire and the connector is a red with a white stripe. So look at my cheat sheet here, and red with the white stripe, we put the brown wire to it. Same with up here on this other connector. The red with the white stripe, the new wire is brown. So, all right, we know we got that right. I'll cut a piece of heat shrink here. And we'll slide it over the brown wire. And we get both wires out here. Now we'll go ahead and tin the wires, both of them. And now all we got to do is hold the wires together and hit it with the soldering iron. Just like that. Slide the heat shrink over the joint. And apply heat. that was the last connection. So the wiring harness is complete now. Now, we had that piece of heat shrink on here before. Now I got some heat shrink here. Let me widen this out a little bit. And I just took a piece and shrunk it down so you can see this is the original size of the heat shrink. And when you heat it up, it shrinks down to a much smaller size here. So we're going to use some of this because we have to put it over top of this connector here. So we'll just cut a piece of it here. And the only thing that this is really for is that where these wires go through this hole in this metal bracket here, just want to protect them from chafing against this metal here so that they don't cut into the insulation. So that's basically all it is. If we didn't have heat shrink, we could get by. We could wrap electrical tape around it, or some of that. If you're familiar with that spiroplastic type stuff, you could cut a piece off, and it's sort of like a spring, and you can wrap that around there. Anything that would protect it. So what we need to do is get this on a little bit lower profile, but it'll pretty much go through here anyway. And we'll just slip it on here like this. And we'll shrink this down a little bit so that we can get it to go through the hole. Settings, one that puts out heat and one that just blows air. So I have to put it on the air setting to cool it down. This is still hot. Just shape it a little bit. Okay, well, that does it. All we got to do now is put this cover back on. screws for it here. Okay, well that does it. Time Crisis 4 gun should be ready to reinstall now. So all we have to do now is go back to the arcade, take the control panel off, bolt it back on, plug it in, and put the control panel back on, and then test it out. Okay, we're going to start by taking this control panel off. It's got a total of 10 screws in it, security screws. So go ahead and remove all these screws. Got 2 in the very back here.
Here's a list of recent winners.
Got 2 down here in the front, but on this game I only got 1 because the other one was missing when we got the game, and the threaded piece that the screw goes into is spinning in the housing, so it can't put a screw in it, but that's okay. 9 will hold it. Alright, we got a total of 6 on the plastic control panel cover that also goes through the control panel here. This control panel also has, of course, the built-in holster here where the gun goes. More to go. Take this plastic piece off to get it out of the way. And I put some tape on the hole here where the gun goes, just to keep people's fingers out of it. So we'll take that off now. And lift it up and slide it down, and it'll come right off. Just have to get the gun, bolt it back on here, and plug it in. So I'm going to go get the gun, and we'll set up for that. Okay, now we're ready to install the gun. I already took the nuts and the washers and all off here, so all we have to do is feed it through the control panel. And put the flat washer lock washer and a nut on both of the studs. And these are metric nuts. So I'll just use my universal metric nut wrench. All we have to do is plug the wire back in. And here's the connector for it. And just like before, it only goes in one way, but we want to make double sure we get it the right direction here. Okay, now we've got that on, so now all we got to do is put the control panel back down. Just let the gun hang here for a minute. And I'll put the bottom in. Set it back down. And I'm just going to put one screw in it up here, just to keep it from sliding down. Because we're going to test it out before I put all these screws back in, just to make double sure it's working right. Okay, so we'll go ahead and fire the game up and we'll check it out before we finish battening up the control panel. Okay, well we got the game booted back up and I'm just going to go for it. I'm going to put some credits on it here and see if it works. And yes, we have success. It's working.
You have to change weapons. Release the pedal and pull the trigger.
Alright, let's try it out here and see what happens.
Top secret.
Okay. Try machine gun. Oh yeah. Try shotgun. And let's just try a grenade, just for the heck of it. And it's tracking good too, so I'm not going to even have to mess with the tracking. It's aiming fine. Okay, well that's enough of that. Let's go ahead and we'll put the screws back in the control panel. And this kind of thing is kind of filthy here, so we're going to see if we can clean it up a little bit with some simple green before we put the plastic and the screws back in it. Probably the first time it's been cleaned since it was new. Alright, well that really needed to be cleaned. And I'm going to tell you I made a mistake here. I can't put that plastic piece back on the control panel here with the gun mounted on here. I thought you could, but you can't. So, because the gun won't fit through the opening there. So I believe it won't. No, I lucked out. It will fit. Okay, so I'm going to be able to do it after all. Well, that was nice of them to design it that way. But this thing here is filthy, so I'm going to have to clean this. Nothing I can do about the scratches, but that's why this is on here, to protect the control panel, protect the art underneath it, so it catches all the hell. Alright, I'm going to clean this up and put it back on, and we'll be back. That all cleaned up and back on, now we'll go ahead and put the screws back in. And I'll start with this other top one. And they're a little sometimes tricky to get started, so we're going to put them all in first and leave them loose so we can make adjustments. This makes it a lot easier. So far so good, they're lining up pretty good. Usually when you get down to about that last one is when you have a problem. That one doesn't feel right.
Here's a list of recent winners.
Okay, I dropped one, so let me see if I can find it here. Okay, I found it. All right, we got them all in. So I'm going to go ahead and snug them all down now. through. Got them back in the holster.
Here's a list of recent winners.
And the game is done. That's all it is to it. Now we'll clean up our tools and then we'll go ahead and we'll try a game. Just want to mention one other thing here. Because this is a large cabinet, it's still 2 independent games. So the left coin slot is for player number 1 and the right coin slot is for player number 2. Since player number 1 was still working, we left the game on so you could play a 1-player game. But to keep people from coining up the player 2 side, because without a gun you can't play the game, I went ahead and just taped up the coin entry. So now that the game is working, all we have to do is pull the tape off and we're ready to go. Okay, well, we'll put all the tools away, so let's go ahead and coin up a game and play us a little Time Prices 4.
How to change weapons. Release the pedal and pull the trigger to change weapons.
We have a new mission for you, gentlemen. Attack.
Okay, here we go. Let's start out with the machine gun. Okay, well, the game's playing good. Everything looks good. So I'd say this was a success. Okay, well, that's enough for now. Well, we're back up and running again. Time Prices 4 is fixed. So that's just another arcade fix. Have you had your arcade fix today?